Welcome to the Unlock Podcast, an innovative approach towards human development. My name is Amanda, and today I am joined by Kalim Ul Masih. Kalim is a highly motivated coach with more than 10 years of experience in humanitarian and development contexts. His approach is client-centric. He believes that careful introspection enables the client to unlock their full capacity. He's interested in developing both individual and team capacity. His clients say that he's a trustworthy companion in their journey to realize their full potential. Kamal has his own company called Phoenix Coaching, and he's also an associate for Unlock. So welcome, Kalim. Would you like to add anything more?
Thanks very much, Amanda. Really appreciate it, the kind introduction. I'm happy to be here. I think it captures everything.
Well, happy to have you. So today we will be talking about social responsibility. So what better way to begin with asking, how would you define social responsibility?
Social responsibility to me is an ethical framework that requires us to act in a manner that is beneficial for society as a whole, not only ourselves. When it comes to corporate context, there is a understanding that American economist called Howard Bowen is someone who set that set the social responsibility in a corporate context, and particularly in his book Social Responsibilities of the Businessman, that was published in 1953.
Great. So thank you so much for sharing. I recently was hearing, because some people confuse social responsibility with legal compliance, and we're here to kind of mark that difference. And I would like to continue asking, how does Unlock enable social responsible systems?
Unlock enables social responsible systems, of course, through its work with individuals, teams, and groups and organizations. And at the same time, while it works meticulously with these groups, it also aligns its work with the Sustainable Development Agenda of the United Nations, and particularly through the Goal 17, which relates to capacity building and partnerships. So Unlock works through the kind of wider umbrella and which permeates into its actions all over, through individuals, through organizations, and to the system.
So this is meaning kind of like we go from individual, like to kind of addressing the individual conflicts that they may be or challenges, right? And then we move to a broader system, let's say like group coaching or maybe like just full on corporate approaches in the sense of coaching.
Yeah, exactly. And I think what's important to remember is that as an organization, as a major coaching organization, as Unlock, it's important that all of the message is communicated through its work. We can start with an individual, of course. We can start as an individual that wants to develop their capacity. At the same time, society is consisting of individuals. So we want to also have this understanding that, okay, we can work through individuals to impact the wider society and community. And then at the same time, we want to link this work that we do in the systems through partnerships. Let's say in the international frameworks, such as the United Nations system, or corporate social responsibility initiatives that many companies are fortunately engaged with. So we want to look at those linkages and see how we can strengthen them.
Yeah, to kind of address the full spectrum and not just the very few that are the main components of it. So it's essentially like popularizing or kind of like globalizing that approach of like making a whole system become a bit more self-aware towards being more socially responsible.
Yeah, exactly. We want to look at the world from a local perspective towards the global perspective. And we want to see how we can connect that individual to impact their surroundings so that it's globally beneficial for everyone as a global community, as a society, for the benefit of future generations.
Great. So could you provide maybe an overview of the work Unlock does in coaching on social responsibility, and what has been the impact that you've foreseen, like in these marginalized population that are often overlooked?
So Unlock works through accelerated behavioral change model, which analyzes the perspectives of the person and the capacities of the person and the situation, the baseline where the person is at, and then works through that understanding with the person, with the individual, towards a sustainable change in their behavior that is beneficial for themselves and the people and the society around them. So Unlock works, of course, various ways, trainings and workshops to individuals and groups and organizations and institutional levels, as well as individual coaching. And it also is very, very principled when it comes to marginalized populations and those who think that those who feel are marginalized from participating in social, economic, and political life. And Unlock works with these populations in a way that it develops their capacity and awareness to understand that they have a say in their own affairs and empowers them to act beyond the current means by understanding first how to act to the benefit of themselves and their fulfillment of their rights in a wider society. It's an impact to an individual and society that is then sustainable when we are able to see what are our skills and abilities through self-awareness, and then creating opportunities to act sustainably with those skills and capacities.
Yeah, so I was going to mention, as you were talking, I was just thinking that a lot of times the DEI's like the DEI, let's call it department or focus within a company, is very like intertwined with social responsibility, but still, same as I mentioned before, it's very different. It's a very different approach that you should, yes, have like a correlation, but it's important to really pinpoint and separate what truly falls under what is socially responsible for the company to be enabling in their system and their organization, and what truly falls under like the DEI umbrella in this sense. So we talked about marginalized population, and it's truly how can you make everyone felt seen in a system that truly will just look out for everybody's well-being, self-awareness, and development within themselves and within the organization. So thank you so much for mentioning that, because I think that's also often overlapped. So it's just different terms that should be falling like closer to social responsibility, but often can be overlooked and can be confusing. So thank you. So could you share some highlights or maybe some insights into specific services that Unlock offers or that you have experienced through your coaching trajectory, like coaching career is the better way in general. You can also mention kind of like to address like the diverse needs of the global population. Like I know it's a little bit broad, but maybe you can narrow it down and then we can move towards organizational and then global.
Thanks, Amanda. What comes to mind directly is leadership. Unlock strives for developing leadership in organizations and how they operate in the wider systems with networks of leaders. So Unlock prepares that leader into tackling the current situation in the world, whatever that may be from their perspective. So capacity building of that leader is important, and it's at the core when it comes to leading organizations. We also want to distinguish and potentially mention in a as I mentioned separately, that leading is not only the job of a leader of a major corporation. It's starting from us leading ourselves. So we as humans have the first person to lead, which is ourselves. And when it comes to that, Unlock creates that self-awareness in you that you start leading yourself, and that also connects with that person who is a leader in a major corporation. And Unlock works meticulously with these leaders to be able to become the best selves and best leaders that they can be. And that then, of course, has its impact on how the organization behaves, how the institution behaves, and how it impacts their culture, and how much it has an impact on positive well-being elements in the corporations and institutions. So Unlock has its concentration, which I have also experienced in training and leading, training and facilitating leadership programs.
Yeah, so we can kind of think that we're all at any point of our lives, we're leaders of, yes, our very own, but sometimes we're leaders like outside our jobs, like in our families, maybe even if in a group of friends, like in maybe like in church, or you know, like some other place or group or system that we belong, because we belong to several groups in our life. So it's nice and it's important, you know, that you're mentioning this, because that makes me also think, you know, how am I showing up everywhere else, and how beneficial is coaching truly to transform your whole being, right? And as you know, work into transforming yourself, you work into the betterment of being more aware and being more pushing towards a better system, but more so a better world in a general sense. So that's a very, very beautiful comment that you made there. So thank you. And I wanted to move forward with talking about initiatives. So what initiatives or resources does Unlock provide? I know you already mentioned the ABC model, so the accelerated behavioral change, to create sustainable change. But what did we provide to enhance like more like individuals' work-life balance, and especially again focusing on marginalized backgrounds, because these are humans that are often overseen in like social aspects, especially, you know. We've talked about different people that can fall within these groups, and we are often seeing them still overlooked, even with the awareness that has been created throughout the years. Could you tell me something about how are we enhancing that work-life balance for these marginalized populations?
Yeah, so I could start with the organizational level, where Unlock provides training and capacity building within the organizations that it works with to better cater for the populations they serve, the organizations serve, at the same time, those people who are within the organization. So Unlock does not overlook the fact that there are people within the payroll of any organization that may feel that they are in those groups in one way or another. So Unlock's approach is to develop that organization at the same time they develop their delivery to the people that they serve. So not only the people that you serve, but at the same time embodying that culture within the organization. So Unlock provides that ability for any organization, an institution, corporation to cater for the needs of the populations that feel that they are falling into the margins. And at the same time, when it comes to an individual, the individual coaching is an important element that has this one-to-one personal individual connection with a coach of Unlock, for example. And as I do my work, I connect with the person. We realize the issues. We want to work with them. So all of these, we, as associates of Unlock, we work with these issues with the client to go through very carefully the life circumstances, so that holistically they come out from that experience as more fulfilled and more understanding of their ability to influence their society and have ways to to handle their everyday situations and not feel increasingly socially and politically and economically in the margins. So one thing I wanted to add also is that it's not only face-to-face, and Locke is specialized in delivery of e-coaching services, which also gives the possibility of anyone who wants to be coached to have that on online, completely text-based. So there is a possibility of that option as well for those who wish to stay non-visual.
Yeah, that's a good way to stay anonymous in a sense, because sometimes we do feel more comfortable just speaking to a wall, let's call it that way, right? But sometimes we are facing these deep issues that we don't want to be judged. So that's the first thing that we move towards. Like, we're all human, so we off the bat we think we're being judged. And even if coaches are trained not to specifically go towards that lens, because if you show up with your own biases, then you're not delivering properly, and you're not really showing up for the betterment of the person or the organization, and not even yourself as a professional. So it's a good way to also mention that that is available, because some people do feel more comfortable being anonymous. I mean, we also, like, you can compare, there's a bunch of accounts you can say on social media that have moved for a faceless method, is what it's called. So people do like faceless methods, so they're not, like, nobody's aware of them, so they can be like successful, I would call them, but they don't have to be famous or popular because their face is there. And it's curious because most of these accounts are like made of, like, by coaches or psychologists, and I think it's really, like, special for them to show up for people that have also had that fear of not being, well, not wanting to be seen in a way, but still wanting to show up for one another. So that's really, really curious that it's also available, that we also have that available in Unlock, because that is a possibility. And that also brings more opportunities for people that might feel a little bit, not encouraged as a whole, like, to show up. Because, I mean, once you show yourself, you can feel like, even if it's not happening, certain judgment, because at the end we're all thinking from our own biases, and that might also help to kind of not retain, but maybe delay that transformation that might be happening for this individual. So it's important to mention our coaching approach, especially the written one, also to the benefit of people that have problems with connection, or they're in conflict zones. I know that is very beneficial, because maybe you have a few minutes and then you cannot, like, be replying instantly, but once you do, your coach can come back and reply and be present when you're more needed. So thank you for sharing that. So as we're mentioning this and we're talking about not keeping people within the, like, outside the margins, who, in your opinion, is responsible for making the world a better place? And how can individuals contribute to the well-being of others that are often left unseen?
That's a very good question. Thank you for raising that. Well, I think the responsibility lays within us, and through coaching, for example, and careful introspection and self-awareness, we can understand that we are responsible for making the world a better place, us as individuals. Each action that we take has a meaning, and it's a communication of our needs. So we want to connect that need to the betterment of the world and have that translated into an appropriate action. And when it comes to us understanding that we are responsible, we want to see what is that social aspect, that social responsibility we want to manifest to our actions. Because I do believe that we are stronger as a group, stronger and strongest as a team. So if we can go from that continuum, from individual to group to a team that works towards the betterment of our world, we can actually have an impact. The bigger a team we are, the better we are. And if we have the leadership that is self-aware and has the same aim, we can do wonders. What are the ways to do so for an individual is to see what in your surroundings is beneficial. Well, we can all start with recycling. We can all start with, doing some voluntary activities. We can look into things, and there are many initiatives online. We can see how we can do that. I would suggest to see a team and to join it, and to see that the team is doing that under a leadership that is value-based towards this common aim of us to making a world a sustainable place to live for all of us in the future.
Yeah, so you mentioned about kind of like having these systems that work, so where we can all do like little towards a bigger goal. Let's call it little, but I don't think there's little anything, especially when you're working towards the betterment of everyone. And you mentioned making like social what is it, like social work, like doing some social work, like engaging in social activities. And I was thinking of some companies that they say like, oh, you can get a, like, especially I know this is more like connected to like corporate US, but they give bonuses to people that participate. So maybe that is also a way that you can also enable systems like, oh yeah, you want to participate, maybe if you do whatever amount of hours within a year, or you have within the company, philanthropic opportunities for people to engage in. And that is a way that you can also be, as a company, enabling the betterment of the system outside as well of the organization, because ultimately we have to create the world that we want to live in. And as an organization, you can transcend those barriers and actually deliver to transform people and systems that can be reflecting in society. So I was going to ask, how does Unlock approach the intersectionality of social responsibility? So considering the diverse challenges faced by individuals across different backgrounds and identities.
So when it comes to the intersectionality of social responsibility, there are many dimensions, of course, when it comes to people's needs and people's ability to influence their surroundings are sometimes diminished because the venues are not there to provide that. And Unlock does this through awareness process that is integrated into its approach. What I mean by that is that we want to make sure that all the elements in these organizations, all people in the organizations, are aware of what it means to have those policies in place that benefit everyone. Not only because of the sheer benefit of everyone, but how this benefit then is directly linked to the benefit and the well-being of the organization and its people. So having that understanding is, of course, as I mentioned earlier, in the leadership training and the ability to facilitate these processes by Unlock that are potentially missing. We do have in chapter 12 of this podcast, actually, my dear colleagues explained how DEI, LGBT, IA plus communities are also and can be also considered in an appropriate manner when it comes to social responsibility. And in this way, Unlock also has the ability to kind of manifest its value-based approach in inclusive behavior of the organizations. So that intersectionality comes into play in direct consideration and identification of all people. So when we talk about strength in numbers, we never forget the individual. And I think that's what also captures the work very well.
So you would say then, connecting to the podcast that you mentioned, this is the the one with Marcel and Maxime Dubec that we did a couple of months ago. And we talked about, yeah, LGBTQAI plus individuals and how do they show up and how do they, how can they be made felt seen, sorry, within an organization. And I think it's very curious that you mentioned this because one of the things that they talk about is the hiring process and the language that we use within the organization. And we need to truly enable as well, like a culture within our company that enables this to be like the norm besides then the exception, right? So we can talk about hiring processes. We can talk about, we talk about things that are very physical, like the usage of restrooms, like in the office, like how can you make them feel like they're not outside the margins, as we mentioned before, which is a really great episode that anyone that wants to benefit from this conversation can also check out. So this is a very like idealistic, maybe dreamy question, but I really want to talk about this because as it is our last question for this podcast, I really want to know, what do you envision for the future of coaching on social responsibility, and how can individuals advocate for positive change in their communities?
So the world is becoming more connected than ever, and there's also a risk that we do not take benefits of that ability to connect with each other. There's a looming and also current disconnect that is present in us, and this is something that we need to consider when we talk about benefits of coaching. And to me, and I'm sure many of my colleagues will agree, that coaching is one of the ways to connect us back to who we really are and what we really want. And I have I'm very happy to say that no matter who I've coached, I've always coached a human being that wants the best for everyone else. And that's something beautiful that has come as a lesson to me as a coach. And I do believe the inherent goodness of a human being. And that connection, well, as world is becoming more and more connected, and there is a danger of disconnection in that, we want to cherish that ability for us to connect. And how to do that is to continuously look for opportunities for us to discuss rather than disagree from the onset, to understand rather than go against. So we want to create these opportunities together, that anyone in your community or someone online that is connected with you, you look for the ability to understand them. You don't always accept from the onset what another person can say, but coaches are trained to understand you, to help you and guide you to translate that understanding into appropriate action, because sometimes our actions are not commensurate with our intentions. So how do we do that in practice? We want to discuss more, we want to listen more, and that is an everyday task for all of us. And when it comes to more systematic tasks that we can potentially employ, is to participate in your community activities. Try to see how you can influence good to become better. Yeah. So it can be a charity work. It can be, train yourself as a coach, or take a, additional course, be part of a community, anything that influences you. Be socially responsible through those, and find out what it means to me. And for me, it means that I do that through coaching and the work with people marginalized and others.
Yeah, so thank you so much for this answer. Very valuable and very important to kind of globalize this. I think this was in a private conversation that we shared, that you always mentioned to make social responsibility social. So it's essentially this, right? Making it everyone's job and truly making ourselves available to find ways to create a betterment for everyone. So thank you for that. That also connects with this product that we have here on Unlock, right? The manager's coach. That also makes you as a formal, let's call it formal because you have the title. So let's call it formal leader. It also enables you to become self-aware and to look for the betterment of your team, your company, your organization, and so on. So summarizing a little bit this episode, which I hope I do justice to you because you've shared so many valuable insights. So we talked about how to define social responsibility. And you mentioned that it requires to act in a manner that benefits the whole. And you also talked about Howard Bowen, that it's one of the fathers of the social responsibility, and that you can learn more in his book. So we also discussed how can Unlock enable socially responsible systems. So we talked about doing group and individual coaching and connecting with individuals to benefit the whole systems. Talking about how to provide an overview of the work that we have done here at Unlock, we talk about how Unlock works with the ABC model. Through this, they provide a sustainable change with trainings, with workshops, and different approaches that you as a coach and us as a company can provide for both the individual, the organization, and the system as a whole. And how do we connect from this with insights from Unlock? We talked about leadership and how Unlock strives to deliver it and how they operate in a wider system. And talking about systems, we talked about leaders, and talking about leaders, we talked about informal leaders, which is everyone's job because we ultimately are leaders within the organizations that, well, not organizations, maybe systems that we are part of. So let's talk families in the church, in the group friend, and so on. So it's kind of like enabling a system where everybody feels seen and everybody can show up and realize that we're all leading to something, right? Even if it's not a formal title, we should all be enabled as leaders. Focusing on marginalized backgrounds, we talked about some initiatives or resources, and we talked about Unlock not overseeing or overlooking these groups in our approaches to develop this organization, as well as their delivery to the people that we serve, and that we just don't allow these people to be left outside the margin. We make it very obvious that you are allowed to show up and you have the space to be as you are. So we talked also about using different approaches in coaching. So written form was one of the ways that we talked about, so you could stay fully anonymous. Responsibility essentially lies within us if we want to change this full system, and we are responsible to making the world a better place. Considering we're talking about whose responsibility is it to create a more socially responsible world. The better team we are, the stronger and better we can work towards everyone's benefit. And how does Unlock approach the intersectionality? So we mentioned the podcast, a podcast with about LGBTQAI plus individuals. We talked a lot about DEI and how this connects truly to being socially responsible. And the best and final question for the last was to talk about the future and talking about kind of how do you envision for us to continue. And it's saying that the world is becoming hyper-connected, but we might also fall into a disconnect. And we have to consider that and truly take advantage of the benefit of coaching to continue creating and enabling systems that are towards the benefit of everyone. You talked about how coaching reconnects to who we are. No matter who you coach, you always keep in mind that you coach humans at the end of the day, and that they're all looking for the betterment both of themselves and the organization and their systems. So that's something that you can also be an enabler to become a bit more self-aware. We also talk about coaches being trained to make this transformation happen for you. So it's important to know that you can always leverage, your self-awareness journey through some coaches. Discuss more, listen more, participate actively in your community, and essentially, well, make social responsibility social. Would you like to add anything more, Kalim?
I think that's a very comprehensive account of what we've been discussing. So I thank you for your efficiency in this. That's wonderful. And nothing more to add, actually.
Well, thank you so much for an insightful and inspiring conversation, Kalim, and thank you again for accepting the invitation. And to our listeners and viewers, stay tuned as we continue to unlock human potential.